Hey everybody, how's it going? It's Joe. Welcome back to another episode of the Inside Our Phillies podcast. It is October 12th. We should have seen Game 5 of the NLCS yesterday NLDS yesterday against the Dodgers, but we did not, and we have a little bit of a series retrospective and a look ahead for the offseason. And here to talk about it all, we should have had Giles. How's it going, man?
As good as it can be going after a series like that.
How's the recovery now that we're 3 days after that horrific Game 4?
So, I think I fully accepted what was going to happen when that umpire missed the strike call in the 7th inning on Alex Call. I think I knew exactly what was going to happen following that, and I kind of just accepted the defeat in that moment.
Right.
And I kind of accepted it the moment they lost Game 2 that they were gonna lose the series in all likelihood. So I had more time to sort of just prepare for it. It didn't hurt me as much watching how it ended because I said to myself in that last inning, I was like, I don't want to physically watch them lose this game. And I pulled up Game Day, which is like 2 pitches ahead of the actual thing I was streaming it on TBS.
Right.
And I saw in play runs, and I just shut off the stream. Just turned the game off, and only like a few minutes afterwards did I hear of the horrors that happened with the Kerkering play, and so I think it lessened the impact a little bit in Green, but it's still awful because I liked this team. I know you didn't like it as much as I did, but I really liked this group of guys, and it's just unfortunate. I think what happened this series, they ran into a generationally talented team, and they also just didn't show up.
Yeah. It's a little bit of A and a little bit of B for sure.
Yep.
I don't think I'm ever gonna forget the slow motion. I could see it happening, as it was happening. I saw Chicharito point towards first base. I saw the play there, perfect view from where I was sitting, and I could tell what was gonna happen. And I'm never gonna forget that. Like, I thought I wasn't gonna forget Bryson Stott's bunt, but.
Right.
I barely think about that anymore because all I think about is the Kerkering play.
I'll say the first time I watched it, it sort of takes a couple watches to really see how a play breaks down, kind of like that. The first time I watched it, I didn't think it was going to be as easy of a play at first base as everybody was saying. I watched it a few more times, and obviously it would have been an easy out at first base,
right?
With a good throw. Even though Baez runs pretty well. I said this to you. I don't know if you said this in the previous podcast. I really think Kerkering didn't remember how many outs there were. I think there was a lot of that going on right there. I mean, that's the only thing I think that really can explain the decision making there. And obviously, I feel really awful for Kerkering because he was such a useful pitcher for them all season, and nobody's going to remember any of that. They're just going to remember that play there. Even though I don't even think that's top 5 reasons why this team lost this series.
Yes.
It was the nail in the coffin, and it's what everybody's going to remember about it. But there were so many other things that happened before that, and it sucks that it happened to him. But I hope he realizes, I don't think they were winning that game even if he throws to first.
Yeah, that's probably accurate. I don't share the same feeling of upsetness at the umpiring as you do. It's kind of just one of my core parts of my baseball ethos that umpires are going to be what they are, and they work sometimes against you and they work against you.
It's just frustrating to see Sanchez make an absolutely perfect pitch there and then immediately come back to bite him in the rear. And I get it. The Phillies need to score more than 1 run that game over, what was it, 11 or 12 innings,
right?
But it's still just frustrating to see something that was a strike not get called it. I think hopefully in the future someday we'll just have everything automated, but we're still ways off from that.
Yeah, I mean, the main thing I take a look at when I look at this series is you look at the runs that the Phillies allowed over these 4 games. 5 runs in Game 1. They allowed 4 runs in Game 2. They only allowed 2 in Game 3, and they only allowed 2, 1 earned, obviously, in Game 4. And that wasn't enough. I think if you told people going into the series that, they would only be averaging a few runs a game that they allow, people would think that this was going to be a series that the Phillies would win. Shohei Ohtani got
handedly
1 hit the entire series, I think, right?
Yep.
there's so many things when you say that these things happened, you would have thought that it would have gone better. They got 3 runs off of Shohei Ohtani. They got 3 runs off of Yoshinobu Yamamoto and chased him in 3 innings or 4 innings.
Yep.
So I look at this as a massive, massive missed opportunity.
Disappointment. Yeah. Um, I the only thing that provides me some solace, I think, is that it isn't like 23 or 24 where they lost to an objectively, I think, worse team than them in like humiliating fashion. It's more of a 22 deal where it's a generationally good team that they lost to. And I think a lot of people sort of missed that because the Dodgers pitching staff was injured through so much of the season. It sort of seems to be a running cliche with them year to year now that half their pitching staff gets injured. And then they all, of course, got... Pardon?
Where do you rank like the last 4 years, 22 to 25, in terms of like the biggest to the smallest missed opportunity?
23 is the biggest for me. They kill the Rangers if they play the Rangers in the World Series. I firmly believe that. I think 20, in terms of missed opportunities, 22 has to be number 2, just because he came within 2 wins of a title. But in terms of being let down, I think that's at the bottom, just because I never expected to beat the Astros at any point, really, until they won Game 3.
Right.
But, it's the Astros. I'm not super upset that they lost to them, but it's still definitely a missed opportunity. And then I think this year, and then 2024, because I think that I think midway through this year, I finally got myself to accept that team was cooked at the end of 24. I don't think they were going to go anywhere, even if they somehow beat the Mets in that series. But this team, what frustrates me, this series is they were in every single game they lost to the Dodgers this series. They lost by 2 runs, by 1 run, and by 1 run in all their 3 losses. And the starting pitching held up in every single game, and they just could not get that one hit, or they made that one stupid decision. Rob Thompson did, or one pitcher made one bad pitch, and that was the deciding point in every single one of these games. If Edmundo Sosa gets a hit there with the bases loaded in the 9th inning, or the 8th inning in Game 1, maybe that changes the outcome of that game.
Or the way Rob Thompson managed that game in Game 1. That's what I think of more than the Sosa. I mean, obviously Sosa didn't come through, but
yeah, I was gonna get to that. Thompson, like beyond even just leaving Sanchez in for the 6th inning, which I think, even though I think you and I kind of agree on after at least the first hit, at most after the first hit, he should have been pulled.
Yeah.
But just bringing Robertson back out for the 7th, I think is the criminal mismanagement right there. By Thompson, not putting Strahm in to start the 7th. And then in the second game, I was all for, I'll stand by it, I was all for having Luzardo start that inning where they scored all the runs. But after he gave up the 1 hit, I wanted him yanked, and then of course he gave up a Castellanos double to Freddie Freeman. A Castellanos double, as in it's only a double because it took him so long to get to the ball. But then that inning spiraled because of that, and if you bring in somebody else who gets Freeman out, then they don't score that inning. And I know people like to put the blame on Turner there for not making a great throw home, but again, Thompson left Luzardo out there too long, and that's sort of what started all that. So it's just there's, especially in Philadelphia, I said this to you before Game 4, I think, is that this series could have easily been a sweep for the Phillies if they had made good managerial decisions, or if they had just gotten a couple hits, and they could have easily swept the Dodgers.
I'm with you in a lot of ways. Going back to the biggest missed opportunities, I would put. I have no ill will to the 2022 season, but I have to put that as the number 1 missed opportunity, just because you're 2 home games away from winning a World Series, and I think there is not ill will, but there's pain as you kind of think back on that, and that will probably end up being the closest that this core ever will get to winning a World Series. And then I think 23, because like you said, Phillies are, if they won a game against the Diamondbacks in Philadelphia, one more, they would have gone on to been the favorites to win the World Series that year. This number 3. And then last year, I don't really think that was a missed opportunity. I just think that team was overrated because they had a couple of good months to start the year, kind of just like the Cubs this year. And as far as like the way you look at the games, I'm with you. I mean, every single game in this series was winnable. And what I want to know from you is like, where do you kind of divide the blame, right? Like, there's people that are blaming Rob Thompson. There's people that are blaming the
Hmm.
lineup. There's people that are blaming the pitching. Um, what percent blame do you apply to each of those groups?
So, first off, I just want to add a comment that you said each of these games were winnable. I'd say all these games were winnable, but none of them felt like they were going to be won just by how the team was playing on offense.
Yeah.
Uh, it sort of had that vibe, like this is winnable, but they're just gonna let and watch the Dodgers take it. But so for pitching, that's starting pitching. Of course, I'm just gonna divide this into two. Starting pitching gets 0% of the blame from me. I think anybody that blames starting pitching for anything in this series is out of their mind. They held down this objectively elite Dodgers lineup to basically in every single game. They held them to 2 runs or less in every single starter. So they get no blame. Luzardo was spectacular. Sanchez was amazing. Suarez and Nola were both awesome. And the bullpen, uh, I'd give them like 10%. I think a lot of it is Thompson mismanaging them and not using them correctly. Game one's a prime example of that. Uh, the baffling insistence, despite evidence to the contrary, that Kerkering should pitch with runners on base in key spots late in games, just in game two and in game four here, just confounded me. I get in game, four, you're starting to sort of run out of arms. It's becoming a sort of who's available situation, but they still had Robertson in the bullpen. And, I don't know why he wasn't an option in game four.
It's weird that he
So,
wasn't used after that first game. Like, they trusted him enough to go
yeah,
multiple innings in game one, but then
it's like, oh, we can't do
and
that again. It was sort of the same thing in 23 against the Braves, where Hoffman gave up that home run to Riley, and he didn't get used for the rest of the series for whatever reason in favor of like Gregory Soto and such.
yeah.
So I mean, Thompson's done that before, where a guy has one bad moment in a series and he just doesn't touch him again for the rest of the series.
That's what I was going to say. It
And
ends up going back to the manager. When you see the same thing
yep,
happening year over year,
yeah.
at some point.
So 10% on the bullpen, because in the end, Strom did give up that home run to Teoscar Hernandez. If he doesn't give up that home run, they probably win game one. So the lineup, I'm going to actually give the lineup 60% of the blame here. I'm a big believer in players over manager and coaches in baseball in terms of importance. And the lineup they absolutely did not show up outside of like Alec Boehm and JT. None of them
Yeah.
showed up. Schwarber didn't show up outside of game 3. Harper didn't show up all series. Turner didn't show up outside of game 3. None of them did. And if your guys don't hit, I don't care what managerial decisions you make, you're not going to win baseball games. I mean, you could line the lineup up in reverse order or whatever, and you wouldn't win a baseball game if your guys aren't hitting.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's any manager out there, Bruce Bochy or otherwise, that has a magic wand they can wave that would have made these guys hit here in the playoffs. And whether you want to say that they're playoff choke artists or the Dodgers just have elite pitching, I think it's more the Dodgers' elite pitching. Nobody was touching Blake Snell in game 2. But it's up to you. And I think the last 30% has to go on Rob Thompson, because those decisions in game 1 and mainly the pitching decisions in game 2 were really important to me. I can see and understand what you're thinking with trying to bunt somebody over to third as a tying run with Stott and Kepler up against a left-handed pitcher, and an injured Bader, and you don't have faith in those guys getting a hit or getting a ground ball to the right side, particularly with Stott. I can understand that to an extent. I can't defend sending Robertson back out for the 7th at all. I can't defend keeping Luzardo in to face Freeman at all, or bringing in Kerkering with a bunch of dudes on base multiple times. I can't defend those moves in any way, shape, or form.
I put pretty much. I'm usually with you where I blame the players more than I blame the managing, and that's still true. I probably put 60% of the blame on the lineup, and I put 40% of the blame on Rob Thompson, as well as honestly Dave Dombrowski as well. I think the whole Dave Dombrowski thing is like being a little bit under discussed, because the matter of fact is the Phillies were not prepared for Harrison Bader getting injured. They were not prepared with the roster that they assembled for the series. We had to see Brandon Marsh play a lot of center field. We had to see
Yep.
Max Kepler play center field.
Castellanos play right field.
Castellanos playing all the time. You're right. And obviously, I know that you're constrained by the fact that Justin Crawford is hurt and Johan Rojas is hurt. Just call up anybody that can play defense and play a pinch running spot. It's an important role in the postseason.
It is.
And the Phillies carrying Taijuan Walker and Walker Buehler in this round.
That's baffling right there.
Makes no sense.
I just want to say, yeah, it's utterly shocking. Like, I get carrying one of them as like a super long guy in the bullpen, like in case Game 4 went like 16 innings or something. But I have no idea why two of them had to be on the roster. Part of me thinks, I don't know if Thompson confirmed against this, that potentially Walker Buehler was going to start Game 5 if they had a Game 5 because
there's no way. There's no way.
Well, I mean, I don't know who they would have started then. I mean, Nola on 2 days rest or something?
I mean, I think that could have still gone to Luzardo because he only threw in Game 4, 20 pitches or something like that, right? Like,
I guess,
1 2/3.
I don't know what they would have done, but like that's the only reasoning I can make from it, that they would be carrying Walker on the roster for the playoffs. So I just don't know, and I think.
And Tim Meza. I don't know when you're going to Tim Meza when you have you have Strom above him, you have Banks above him, you have Ranger in the bullpen for those games, you have Luzardo and Sanchez. Like, you have so many lefties on this team. I don't know when you're ever going to Tim Meza in a spot.
I just want to say that, and I'm sure you guys discussed this after the loss. I have no anger towards Thompson walking Ohtani in the 7th inning, by the way, with Duran on the mound. You don't pitch to Shohei Ohtani, I don't think, in that situation. You don't change your philosophy and your approach to a lineup based on 17 plate appearances. If you've gotten a guy out.
If Duran's a guy that walks people all the time, then sure. Then maybe you don't want to put that, go ahead run on base. But Duran's a guy that walked one person in the entire regular season. Like, I'm with you. Like, you have to trust him, and he kind of did let the team down by allowing the walk to Mookie Betts in that spot. Nobody's talking about it, but it was a pivotal moment of this series at the end of the day.
Yep. That's probably another little point added to the bullpen's part of the blame there, because if he gets Mookie Betts out there, then we might be talking about them playing in Philly yesterday.
Yeah.
So how that happened, I think I'm just saying they probably would have lost. I don't think the lineup changes how it was going at all, just because they get back home. So just the pessimist in me, it helps. It makes me feel better to say they were screwed either way, I think, a little bit. So, it's not like, we would have won the series if we gotten back home. I don't know about that, but
yeah.
I think a lot of this team's flaws were baked in. I've been baked in for 2 years now, just because the thing they've been looking for years is a center fielder and a corner outfielder that can actually hit for power. Marsh is good, but he does not hit for a lot of power.
From the right-hand side, too.
Yeah, from the right-hand side specifically.
There's too many lefties.
And then finding a center fielder who's going to be a very good center fielder, with the glove, which is what they need, given that they have Castellanos roaming around in right field, and who's also a plus, offensive player, is extremely rare to find in baseball. It's not the most common thing out there. So, you've been restrained to sort of looking for either a platoon guy to go with Marsh, which is what they tried to do in 2024 with Austin Hayes, or you're just kind of stuck. You got to look for a sort of an average center fielder, which is what they went and they got with Harrison Bader, who was a lot better than that, because they couldn't move Castellanos.
Well, Castellanos is probably gone. I have a hard time seeing him.
That's one thing I think that helps them a lot this offseason, is it makes their roster flexibility improve a lot more, because they're not constrained in who they're able to sign as much now that you've opened up a corner outfield spot.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's kind of go through these free agents and year by year, or not year by year, but of the free agents that the Phillies have coming up and the people with options, who do you think is coming back? Right? First off, we'll still look at some of the smaller ones.
Right.
Jordan Romano is not coming back, right?
Nope.
I think
Nope. Sorry, Jordan.
you can forget that. According to Spotrac, his market value AAV is about $2.75 million. I'm good not spending more money on Jordan Romano.
Yeah, and I think the experiment should end.
Max Kepler, his market value AAV according to Spotrac is about $7.6 million AAV.
If
What do
you
you
wanted to bring
think?
him back as like a bench bat or something, maybe, but that's it. Like, there's no other value really for him.
He ended up having, the war might not show it, but I think that he recovered from, that time
Yeah,
mid-season when he was complaining about his playing time. And,
yeah,
he ended up being, I think, one of the more reliable bat to ball guys on the team. But I'm with you
yep.
that I don't really think there's a need to bring him back either. Next, David Robertson, market value is $6.25 million according to Spotrac.
That's. I would take a flyer on him, honestly. He was pretty good here. Bullpen depth doesn't hurt, and he wouldn't be super expensive as long as he doesn't, retire.
He might
That
retire.
wouldn't be. Yeah, that's I think the biggest question mark there. Otherwise, I'd be fine having him back. I don't see any issue with it. He wasn't horrible for them.
Yeah, I mean, I think one thing that really got exposed by the whole Zach Wheeler injury is, aside from Wheeler and Duran, Phillies really don't have any other right-handed pitchers that they can fully trust. You can't trust
Yep.
Kerkering. Robertson, you can't really trust him. Nola, hopefully next year you can go back to trusting him to some extent. But it's a problem. When people are usually going to be right-handed hitters, just because that's how handedness works. That you're giving up the platoon advantage by having all of your pitchers essentially be lefties.
Yep.
It's just a weird flaw of how this team has been constructed that I don't know how they rectify.
Yeah, I think it's sort of just partially luck that there's most of their best pitchers have turned out to be lefties. But yeah, I agree that it's not ideal, specifically out of the bullpen. They need to work on finding somebody from the right side. So we'll see I don't know what they're going to do for that.
Next, we got JT Realmuto, who, according to Spotrac, has the market value AAV of just under $13 million. What do you think about JT for 13?
You got to bring JT back. I think there's nothing better out there, and he does a good job with the pitching staff from everything that I've heard. 1 or 2 years, obviously, you're not giving him another 3 or 4 year contract, but I don't think that's going to be the end of the world to give JT a 1 or 2 year deal.
Yeah, I'm with you if it's 1 or 2 years. If it's 3 years, then I start to consider if I probably don't want to give him more than 2 years.
Yeah.
But I will say, of like the big three free agents on this team, the other two we're going to get to, Ramiro is the one I probably have the most interest in bringing back.
Yep.
Even though, as we're going to get into a little bit later, I think the Phillies should go into this offseason with the mindset of retooling and maybe accepting that you kind of have to take a step back to take 2 steps forward in the future. The catching position is a big spot of no depth in the farm.
Yep.
And I think you kind of are forced to bring JT back, even if it's a little over that market value AV of 2 years, 30 million.
I'd pay him
fine.
like I said, I was gonna say I'd pay him $15 million a year if he wanted that. To come back here.
Yeah. So now, second highest market value on the team, according to Spotrac, Kyle Schwarber, who they have as a $24.9 million AAV. Are you interested in Kyle Schwarber at that AAV? And how many years would you go?
So I've said this pretty consistently. My question with Schwarber is not the money, because I think he's going to get more than 24 million by a lot this offseason. I think he's going to probably get 30 million at least by somebody. The question is always the years here, because I already made this point here. You don't know how he's going to age. You know how most power hitters age, and it's not well. And he's nearly like 32 and a half or something right now.
Right.
And he's right on the precipice of where most of them start to pretty heavily decline. So I do not want to sign Schwarber for like anything more than 4 years, absolute max. That's really pushing it for me. I'm like I'd be ideal with a 3-year contract for Schwarber. I don't want a 4-year contract or a 5-year, really, especially a 5-year contract.
A 5-year to me is a non-starter. A 4-year to me also a non-starter. DHs and power hitters, they age well until all of a
You
sudden
don't.
they don't anymore.
Yep.
And you never know when that's going to happen. And Schwarber is probably pretty close to that point where you just know he's going to fall off at one point or another. When you look across the league at how much DHs get paid, it's kind of less than you'd think. Obviously, Shohei Ohtani is technically a DH and he gets paid, $70 million a year, even though a lot of that's deferred. That doesn't really count though. Rafael Devers gets paid $31.35 million a year, but I also don't know if that's a great comp because
He actually plays third sometimes or first.
and first, right? Christian Yelich is listed as the DH and he gets paid just under $27 million a year.
Yeah.
Again, he's an outfielder, probably not the best comp. Chris Bryant, $26 million. Crazy contract by the Rockies.
Freaking Rockies. Jesus Christ.
I don't know what to say about that.
They're bad org.
Yeah, well, definitely.
As Bryce would say, effing loser organization.
No, that's totally true. And then you get to the ones that I think are the better comps for Kyle Schwarber. So Stanton, currently $25 million AAV on his current deal. You have Schwarber this year, who got 19.75. Yordan Alvarez, it was a little bit weird because he had some RBers bought out, but next year would be the first free agent year that was part of that extension, and next year his payroll is going to be $26.83 million.
Mm-hmm.
Like, would you rather have, hypothetically, if you could pick anybody for $26.83 million, would you rather have Kyle Schwarber or would you rather have Yordan Alvarez?
I think I'd rather have. I haven't looked at Yordan's numbers recently. But I'd probably rather Yordan at this point. But a lot of these guys are just tough because Stanton is kind of different because he's getting paid $25 million based off an idiotic contract the Marlins gave him,
right?
2015 or something. It's when he could still play the outfield. So that's just sort of a case of contract inflation and baseball devaluing that contract over the years.
Definitely.
So, and then Yelich, like you mentioned, he could still play outfield theoretically. Bryant was just a stupid signing by the Rockies being the Rockies. So I don't really know that we have something like Schwarber right now. And I just need to pull this up and so I don't get bonked for saying wrong numbers for Schwarber. Put up about 5 F4 this season. While having an OPS of 903, I think that is. So it's really tough for me to oh no, it's not 903, these are his playoff stats, but over 900, well over 900. And I think he's going to get, some team is going to back a dump truck up to him full of cash and is going to overpay the crap out of Kyle Schwarber. Just because that's how a lot of these guys seem to work. Either that or he is going to hold out for a contract, Jake Arrieta style, until the middle of spring training next season. Because I think he thinks he's worth 30 million plus. And I think there's a team out there that thinks he's worth 30 million plus.
Yeah, I don't know. There were also reports earlier, months ago, that Kyle Schwarber would be looking for a deal 4 years, $160 million.
Yeah,
which to me,
yeah.
That's lunacy.
Well, you always start high so you can negotiate down. So,
but even if you negotiate down to
what it is. Yeah.
$32 or $33 million, if you
that's still a lot.
What if it was 3 years, $100 million? Do you sign that deal for Kyle Schwarber?
3 years, $100 million. If the penalty for a shorter length contract is I have to pay more in AAV, I will take that. I think longer contracts are more painful than shorter, more expensive contracts. Just because if it's bad, you can sort of cut bait and be done with it sooner than say be locked in for 5 years at $25 million a year and have a guy who's not producing anymore. Oh wait, I'm describing Ryan Howard.
Yeah.
But I think a point that has to be made here. So there's a lot of people who kind of get emotional over this because they love Schwarber, and we all love Schwarber. I don't think you're going to find a Phillies fan that does not love Kyle Schwarber. Kyle Schwarber is not going to be better at any point in his career than he was this year.
No, this is the peak.
There's no way it's humanly possible that he is going to be better than this year. And you cannot pay him and make a contract with him based on the assumption that he's going to, at any point, repeat what he did this season of having, again, 5 F-WAR while basically never playing the field, and having WRC plus of 152 and 56 home runs. That's just never happening again in his career.
Never.
And I'm really, I do not want to see the Phillies sign a contract based off that assumption. I don't think Dave Dombrowski will. I think Dombrowski has hopefully learned his lesson from Castellanos, and he will not do that.
Yeah, I think you're spot on. And I think this is really the what we're going to see out of Schwarber and the next guy that we're going to talk about, Ranger Suarez. Like what the Phillies do with these two guys is going to say a lot about how similar or different things could go. You know, after this peak falls off and this core ages, like is this going to be like the 2012 or 2014 Phillies where they're just too old to be good and you see regression every single time you watch the team? Or are they going to kind of cut bait and maybe, you know, or sign shorter deals but higher AAV and, you know, try to kind of find a way through it without long-term deals? Like, it's tough.
I can spoil my answer for that because I think we want to talk about Suarez before we get to that. But I don't think that's going to happen. I think the team's a lot better run than it was in 2012. It's in a lot better shape.
It's not Ruben Amaro Jr., that's for sure.
Yeah, it's not Ruben Amaro, and they're not the least analytically focused team in all of American sports.
Yeah. Well, speaking of Ranger Suarez, the market value, according to Spot Track for Ranger Suarez, is just under $27 million a year. I would imagine, you know, it doesn't have like an estimated years, but I would imagine Ranger Suarez is going to be looking for a longer term deal, 5 years, 6 years, something like that. So say it's 6 years, $150 million for Ranger Suarez. Like, what do you think about that?
6 years, 150, so about that much. That's Ranger Suarez is the toughest guy on the roster for me right now because there's two things that both tell my brain that yes and no. It's his overall performance, which says when he's on the field, absolutely hell yes, sign this guy back here immediately. He's completely worth the money. And then there's the fact that he has been injured basically every single season since 2023 and has had to miss some significant portion of time to the point where he has somehow not won a Gold Glove in his entire time here because he never qualifies for innings because he's injured so much. Right. I think that says a lot sort of about his overall injury. And also the fact, by the way, that his fastball velocity has declined since 2021 pretty steadily from where it was about 94. And I get 2021, he was out of the bullpen, so that makes a difference. But now it was 93.4 in 2023, 92 last year, and now it's 91 this year. And I get that Suarez doesn't rely on velocity, but there does come a point, and we saw this sort of with Nola in the early season, where that does matter. And I don't know how long it's going to keep up. Some guys just fall off the face of the map really quickly like that. And if it's a 5-year deal, I don't feel comfortable with Suarez. I feel comfortable if it's 3 or 4 years. Like I said, and if it I said with Schwarber, if it starts to go bad, you're not stuck with it for half a decade. Right. But I don't feel comfortable paying this guy Suarez. I think he's going to get overpaid, like Kyle Schwarber. I think teams are going to see it and go, screw the injury risk. We're willing to take that chance, and we're willing to pay Ranger Suarez $35 million over 4 years to come pitch for us.
Yeah, it's a minefield contract. The downside is crazy.
Yeah, it's Jacob deGrom sort of situation. Obviously, it's not Jacob deGrom, but that's sort of what the Rangers did with him. They're like, screw the injury risk. If he stays healthy, he's the best pitcher in baseball. We're going to sign him for all this money. And, it's been mixed, to say the least. Yeah. So I just... My heart says yes. I love Ranger Suarez. He reminds me of Cliff Lee so much. With the nonchalantness on the mound, the pinpoint control at the front door sinker to righties. But then he can't stay healthy. And that I'm going to say no, because I think he's going to get overpaid. I think he's going to want 4 or 5 years, like you said. And I just don't feel comfortable with that.
And it's going to hurt. I'm with you. But it's going to hurt because it's going to make the team worse next year. You're losing a 3 to 4 WAR guy. And who are you replacing him with? Like Andrew Painter is probably the plan, but
Yeah.
I don't know how much you can rely on Andrew Painter. I think it's been long enough since I was told this, and I think that we are deep enough in the podcast where I can say this, and I'm not going to say who I heard this from, but I'll just say it's a very trusted MLB prospect rater from one of the major prospect rating organizations. And I was talking to them a few months ago. Now, this was before the trade deadline. And the quote that I got from them was the Andrew Painter thing might just be falling apart. He said that people make the assumption that you can come back from Tommy John and it's almost guaranteed, and that's just not the case.
That'd be just. I'm gonna refrain from dropping the F-bomb here. That'd be heartbreaking, for me, because it would that would do so many things. If he ended up not being able to succeed at any level in the major league, not just like not even not be an ace, but not even be like a 3 or 4 starter. It's obviously heartbreaking because we know what was there before the injury. Like he was teenage phenom level good.
Yeah.
And he was going to start in 2023. He was going to be on the opening day roster at 19 years old, and then his elbow exploded on his first spring training outing that I ended up watching. And it also ends up hurting Dombrowski's draft record a lot in a way that isn't really Dombrowski's fault, because you can't predict a guy's elbow exploding. Because of course Painter's Dombrowski's first draft pick as a GM of the Phillies in 2021. And, if you get an ace like Andrew Painter, 2 years after you draft him out of high school, I think people view Dombrowski's draft record a lot differently than they do right now.
Right.
I still don't think you can make a complete assessment because so many of the guys he picked were high schoolers. So I think the next year or two is going to be when it really starts coming into picture how well or not well he is picked in the draft. And it hurts their future plans a ton, obviously. Now, I don't think it's going to hurt them as much because I genuinely think Jesus Luzardo is at least fringe ace to ace level material in the future for this team. So I think that's the biggest thing that uncovered this season is Jesus Luzardo.
They should look into a Jesus Luzardo extension, buy out that last RB.
Absolutely.
But going back to Painter, I at first when I was told this, I was a little bit suspicious, even though the person that told me this is somebody that everybody would know if I said the name of them, and I trust them. But then I looked at it, and Tommy John at this point, he's more than 2 years post Tommy John, and he is struggling to be an effective pitcher in AAA. Even just like a 4 ERA guy in AAA. He is a below average AAA pitcher more than 2 years after surgery. That is deeply concerning.
The only thing that I have that's sort of allowing me to cope a little bit, if you will, over this is hearing from some people that was basically specifically working on secondary pitches, so his pitch mix wasn't normal in AAA, and like sort of spring training type working on pitches. And Robertson was doing that when he was in AAA when they first signed him, and his AAA numbers for David Robertson were awful. And then he got up to the majors and he was fine once he started, pitching how he normally pitches. So I don't know if I buy that at all.
Fair.
Listen, the thing that encourages me is it doesn't look like Walker Buehler or Noah Syndergaard. Like Walker Buehler and Noah Syndergaard, their velocity disappeared, and Painter's velocity is still there. I think his stuff is mostly still there. It's command. From everything that I've seen, it looks like command for me. That's his problem. And I really truly believe if there's one thing in player development for the Phillies I believe in, it's their ability to fix pitchers, like they fixed Christopher Sanchez, and they fixed a lot of the wildness out of Jose Alvarado. So I'm willing to give it another year before I really start panicking over Andrew Painter. We all remember that Mick Abel was never even going to sniff the major leagues last season with how bad he was in AAA. And he wasn't good in the majors this year. Let's not pretend that. But he was able to get improve enough to the point where he's able to get up into the major leagues. And so I still have faith that they can work Andrew Painter into a major league player, but I don't think it's a slam dunk, ace prospect anymore.
Yeah, I mean, a year from now, we're going to know a lot more.
Yep.
If Andrew Painter is still with the Phillies, and a year from now, it's looking the same as it is right now, he will not be a ranked prospect anymore. His value will have, fallen off of a roof. It already has fallen to some extent, and I think that the Phillies should probably consider trading Andrew Painter, if you want my honest opinion. But he could also, it wouldn't be the most surprising thing in the world for him to have a good year, come to the majors, have an ERA in the threes for a few months, and all of a sudden you're like, okay, he's this guy still. But let's go to the two options that the Phillies have over the offseason. First one, Jose Alvarado. He is a club option for $9 million. His market value, according to Spot Track, is about $11.5 million. So that would suggest that the Phillies take that option at $9 million. What do you think?
I think they take it. Jose is still insanely talented. He was a freaking idiot cheating this season, but he still has that talent in his arm, I believe. So I think you've got to bring him back. You don't just let guys with that much raw stuff on them walk away when you can just keep them for pretty cheap, like $9 million.
Yeah, I think it's fine. I was months ago of the opinion that this would be a mistake, but looking at it now that we're at the off season, $9 million for Jose Alvarado, it's a shot. It's another lefty, of course, but I think it's worth it. So I think that's something that they're going to pick up. The next option is a mutual option, which we know they're very rarely picked up. But Harrison Bader, his option is for $10 million mutual, so both him and the team have to accept to it. SpotTrack has his market value AV at just a hair over $10 million, $10.04 million. Do you have an interest in bringing Bader back?
Yes, I have an immense interest in bringing Bader back. They've been trying so long to find a guy who can be passable at the plate while playing an excellent defense in center field, and they finally got one of them. And even if Bader declines the option, I would try incredibly hard to try and get him back in free agency. I do not think they should let Harrison Bader walk off this baseball team right now.
Yeah, I think you have to expect offensive regression. Like this was an outlier year for him at the plate.
Absolutely.
But if he can provide two WAR with really good defense in center field, sure. Like give him 2 years, $25 million. I wouldn't be surprised if he signs that. And
that'd be like the second coming of Shane Victorino compared to what we've had out there.
And he's right-handed, right? So at the very least, he's a right-handed hitter that can be about league average. You figure, and that's fine with me with good defense in center field.
Yep.
So, one more thing that I want to get to in this is kind of just talk about what we want the off season to look like. Like when we're looking back at this in 5 months, and it's getting ready for spring training and getting ready for the regular season. Where do you want the Phillies to be? I'll start on this one. I want the Phillies to accept that this core is past their peak. They can still try to be competitive, and they absolutely can be competitive, but I do not want to sign the guys that we know and some of us love just because that they gave us a good stretch.
Yes.
I want to give these younger guys a chance. I want to see what Aiden Miller can do. I want to see what Justin Crawford can do. I want to make smart investments in free agency. The big Kyle Tuckers of the world. Honestly, I don't have a lot of interest in Kyle Tucker. But I think that there's areas that the Phillies can improve. A right-handed bat with power and, a right-handed anybody, a starting pitcher or a bullpen pitcher, because of the question that, you probably have with Zach Wheeler now. Those are the two things that I'm looking for. And I don't want to just trust that the guys that we've had are going to be the guys that are going to get us over the hump next year, because I just don't believe in that anymore.
So I'm in total agreement with you that they should not, and a lot of the people out there, they can't just, run this core back out there, and I agree with that. But I think in a lot of the moves we've discussed with players they let go, they're basically doing the equivalent of not doing that. I think if you let's talk about the guys we know are gone. Castellanos is gone. Schwarber's gone, probably. I think Schwarber's probably gone. I think Ranger Suarez is probably gone. I think that's blowing up a pretty large chunk of the team, like the quote-unquote core from 2022, just right there in that. So
Well,
I think. Sorry, what were you gonna say?
You probably have to get rid of one of Stott or Bohm if you want to have
Bohm's
Miller
gone.
play a spot at
Yeah.
some point.
I'd let Bohm go. I
Yeah.
keep Stott. Stott's fine. I think the Stott hate is sort of overblown. I don't think he's great, but he's perfectly passable as a major league second baseman. I think you bring JT back. I would personally sign Ryan O'Hearn to play DH for them. Yes, I'm still on the Ryan O'Hearn train. But he's going to be cheaper than Kyle Schwarber. He doesn't need to play defense. He hits the crap out of the baseball. He's not, young, so he'll be on a relatively shortish contract. I'm looking through the free agents right now. I have absolutely, positively zero interest in going after Alex Bregman. I don't believe this year is going to be sustained for him. I don't want to see the Phillies go after him really at all. I've made this clear to you, and you've made your lack of interest clear. I want Kyle Tucker. I really want Kyle Tucker to play right field for the Phillies. He just, I think it's I need a good right fielder in my life for once.
Yeah.
After watching Castellanos play right field for us for 4 years,
I see the
I
appeal to it for sure.
Yeah,
I
I
definitely
don't
see
think
the appeal.
I don't think we've had a good right fielder since Jason Worth.
Bryce Harper.
Well, Bryce Harper, yeah, but that was for like 2 or 3 years. Then he got hurt. But yeah, Bryce Harper. We haven't had though. It's just been besides him. It's just been Drek for years and years and years. The outfield's just been the bane of this team's existence for well over a decade. I mean, like Brandon Marsh is our best corner outfielder right now. It's the Achilles heel of this team that nobody talks about. Everybody's like, oh, the managing, or Trey Turner didn't do this or such. But it's like, dude, we're running out Max Kepler and Nick Castellanos to start in corner outfield spots in playoff games. Like, that's not a serious competitive move right there if you're starting those guys in corner outfield spots.
Right.
That's if they want to really compete in the future, they need to fix that. And it's especially a guy who can at least hit lefties competently like Tucker. So he isn't just, they brought in a lefty, our guy's useless now, like Brandon Marsh or Stott or Kepler.
I'm with you.
And yeah, they need a right-handed guy and they need a corner outfielder.
I'm not ready to give names yet because, like I said, we don't know who's going to opt out of deals. We don't know what options are going to be picked up. There's going to be a lot of changes yet to come. But, I think that there's going to be a lot of room to discuss that later on. And we will be discussing that as the offseason goes on. So just let everybody know we're going to be shooting for weekly episodes here in the offseason. I said it last episode, but I'll say it again now. And I am looking forward to talking to you all again at some point next weekend, probably. Giles, anything else that you wanted to say before we finish off the episode?
We're going to have a special Nick Castellanos goodbye episode, right?
Whatever that happens, and we get the inevitable Athletic article about how Nick Castellanos has been a problem for years. Yes.
Right. Yes. All right. That's all I wanted to add.
Yes. I think we'll have to have Nick Castellanos funeral or something like that.
Celebration of release.
It'll be fun. It'll be fun. But yeah, that's all. Thank you very much for being on, Giles, and thank you everybody for listening. If you are not part of our Discord server yet, be sure to join it. We have the link to that in the show notes, and we have a podcast channel where you can talk about the podcast, put in your questions, anything you want to do. We'll probably have a full mailbag episode at some point. So with that being said, thank you everybody for listening, and talk to you all next week.